They were onto something, right? Here we are. Okay, so here's me walking. That crescendo there, it's just epic. Hey there, rock and roll aficionados. Have you ever spent ages learning a song note for note? And then after all that work, it hasn't really got you any closer to becoming the kind of musician that you really want to be. And after like a week, you've forgotten half of it anyway. Music's all about the songs, right? So how do you become a better musician? So recently I recorded the song Apache on my new album. So I spent a lot of time studying the great Hank Marvin. And even though this song Apache is a really simple song, there's just so much to it and there's so much you can learn. You see, the thing is with music, we need to look at 3 different angles: the context, the theory, and the techniques. And that's what it means to fully immerse yourself in the music. That's how you'll be able to really master the different parts of the song and then transfer them to other songs and other places. But before we dive into the mechanics, let's roll back the clock a little bit to understand the context of how this masterpiece came into being. So it all started with Jerry Lorden. He was an English songwriter, and he was inspired when he saw the 1954 film Apache, starring Burt Lancaster. And he wanted to kind of create a tune that captured that feeling, that kind of Western vibe, but that also that courage and the spirit of the Apache warriors. And this song was a very dramatic composition, and it had this very evocative sound to it. Now the first recording of Apache, which you can hear here, it was recorded by Burt Weedon, who was one of the original fathers of British instrumental guitar. But it was really the Shadows who brought this song to life. And Lorden was kind of a bit dissatisfied with Whedon's rendition. He actually went and saw the Shadows when they were on tour, and he showed them this song. And Hank Marvin and the band were instantly hooked. It's kind of funny because he actually showed it to them originally on a ukulele. I mean, I can imagine them being in a tour bus or something like that, and Lorden doesn't have anything else, so he grabs a ukulele and he's like, "Check out this tune, guys," and he plays. You know, and the Shadows were instantly mystified, and they knew that song was going to be a hit. So they recorded it in 1960, and it had Hank Marvin on the lead guitar. And it soared to #1 in the UK. So the context here is like this early 60s. It was a turning point in popular music. Rock and roll was evolving, and instrumental guitar music particularly was gaining serious traction. The Shadows, they were cool and they were hip. I mean, you can see them right here. They were onto something, right? And they had this cool image, particularly because they were the backing band for Cliff Richard, who was like the English Elvis. And Hank, basically, for this song, he invented something that was, he almost kind of stumbled across this sound where he took his Stratocaster and he plugged it into a Vox, which was a new British amplifier. And he was given this echo machine. It's called a Miazzi Echomatic. And it was a multi-head machine. In fact, you can hear him talking about it right here. This is really cool.
If I just hit a damp note, you can hear the echo. Let's see. Da-da-da-da.
So this has a definite rhythm to it.
Yeah. So, and it gives a nice ambience to the note.
With a normal delay, you play a note and then there's one echo and then it feeds back and it fades. And the basic effect of that is almost like a sense of reverb, right? But with this sound here, you can hear there's like a rhythm to it. And that becomes part of the sound and part of the music is that rhythm. When you're playing percussive or staccato lines, that rhythmic effect is really powerful. But then, this is really interesting, when you play sustained notes, it creates this really lush sound that's different to a normal echo because the notes all start to kind of blend together and it creates this really beautiful, big, grand sound. So it creates this really lush effect. Also, this sound was kind of evocative of the Western sound and the sound of the American Wild West, you know, kind of like, you know, later on it would become like the spaghetti Western sound. Back in those days, typically they had pretty heavy strings on the guitar, and a lot of times guitarists, especially a little bit later, they would actually throw away the sixth string and then they would use a banjo string for the first string so they could do all the bends and stuff. But in this case, a big part of the sound of the early Shadows is actually a wound third string. So using heavy strings is a big part of how you get that big sound. But it's not just about the gear, it's also about the techniques that he was using. One of the things with Hank is he would play with a lot of upstrokes, and he would be holding the tremolo arm like this in his hand, and then he'd play with the side of the pick and use a lot of upstrokes to get these kind of sounds. So when you do that, you basically use the side of the pick here. What it does is it gives you a much warmer sound. So on the thin strings, he would use a lot of upstrokes, but then on the low strings, in order to get these strings to stand out, you kind of have to pluck them a little bit more. So what makes the guitar really speak when you're playing on the low strings is hold the pick slightly looser than normally so that you get more of a plucking motion with the pick. If you hold the pick really hard, it gives you kind of a warmer, richer sound. Whereas if you hold the pick lightly and do more of a pluck, you hear much more of the sound of the pick. So one of the other things that's really interesting about this song is it's actually a masterclass in understanding how modes work, because this song is actually using the A Dorian scale, or the A Dorian mode, which is really one of the most mysterious sounding scales. In fact, I sometimes think of it as like the happy minor scale. It's a scale that gets used a lot in jazz music, but it has this very mysterious sound. Here's the sound of the Dorian scale. So it's like a minor scale, but it has a natural sixth, it has a major sixth in it, which gives it this sound. So how the Dorian scale works is an A Dorian mode is actually the second mode of G major. And you can think of it like this. The key of G major is like the home key, but instead of playing a G major chord, you're playing an A minor chord. So you're playing a G major scale, but you're playing it over an A minor chord. You see, the sound becomes much more mysterious and really interesting. So that's the best way to understand modes, is you just think of it as you're playing a G major scale, but over an A minor chord. So modes is simply where the tonal center has changed. Now, one of the other things about learning a song is it's really, really essential to learn the chords and the rhythm part of the song, because that's what really kind of ties it all together. And the main chords for this song are A minor and D in that section, right? And the only key that has an A minor and a D chord is the key of G. So in the key of G, an A minor is the 2 chord and a D is the 5 chord. And that progression there, A minor to D, which is a 2-5, that's the perfect place to play an A Dorian scale. It perfectly fits over that. Another part of the rhythm of this song has this really cool beat to it, and you can hear, so you can see the guitarist from the Shadows, Bruce Welch, playing the killer rhythm right here. He's actually playing the original strat right here. It's cool. So you can hear him playing this killer rhythm here, where it's got this almost a kind of a Spanish strummy kind of. And what you do is you hold the pick lightly, and it's kind of brushing up near the neck here. So that's the chords for the song. It's just A minor to D, That's the first section. And then in the next section, it goes from D minor to G. But he plays that in a cool way, because instead of playing a D minor down like this, he plays a first inversion of a D minor, which is like this. And then he plays the G like this. And it's just a much cooler sound to use those chords. So that's the chord. It's basically A minor to D, and then D minor to G, and then it goes back to A minor to D again. And then it goes to the kind of galloping rhythm. That little bit there goes. So it has that kind of little galloping rhythm section in there. So that's really killer. I mean, that's basically like, if you threw some overdrive on that, that would be metal. So let me show you, let me turn the echo on. So let me show you how the melody fits with those chords. So the basic melody is going to be, you're just going to hold your first finger right here over the A chord. So there's the little melody there, and you can see a big part of that sound is in between the notes. You're just like gently rocking the tremolo like this. Not too much, you're just kind of like letting it sing a little bit like that. And then the second part where he goes to the D minor, it's exactly the same thing. So that's actually going to be, you're going to take that same Dorian melody and you're just going to move it up. So it's actually then, it changes key to D Dorian, which is the same as C major. D Dorian, the home key for D Dorian is C major. So this little melody here. That's a D Dorian. Now, one of the cool things about this song too is it's got these gaps in it, right? In between each phrase, there's a long gap. And when you play it, it's actually really hard not to kind of fill that gap with licks. You know, you just want to play licks in there, right? But when you don't do that and you let that gap there, that's what gives it that power and that kind of majestic sound. But it also leaves time in there for you to hear the sound of that delay ringing out. You can hear that kind of like that echo kind of building up like that. So when you leave that space in there, it gives all that time for you to actually experience and hear the beautiful sound of that multi-tap echo. And then here's where it gets really cool. This is like, that melody is so haunting and so beautiful and so ethereal. But then the galloping section is amazing, because that's where the kind of speed comes in. And the thing about a section like that is you can't mess it up. You've got to hit every note. It's got to be really equal sounding, and you've got to be really articulate with it. So it goes like this. Now, the trick there is basically he's muting with the palm of his hand here. So the palm of the hand is on the strings here, but he's also muting here. And the way he does that is he's bouncing the fingers on the downbeat of each beat. So it's like this. So on each downbeat, you lift up your fingers and you press them down. So, and what that does is that creates that little gap where the fingers lift up, where you can hear the delay kind of kick in. So it's a super cool effect. He does that in quite a lot of the songs. And then in the middle section, he does the same melody, but he plays it up here. But he does it with that same kind of effect. So you've got all that coolness going on, plus the fancy footwork. It's pretty impressive. And then this is the coolest part of the song. So that crescendo there is just epic. So you put all that stuff together, and there you have Apache. So you can see those cool techniques in there of the different ways that he's picking the notes with the side of the pick and the way he's vibratoing the notes. and then the way that he's using double muting a technique. So I worked on this song playing it with the drummer that I work with, Todd Sorensen, who's fantastic, and that's a huge part of this song too, is the drums. And then we actually went and finished it off at Abbey Road, which is where the original song was recorded. And you can see there's a cool video on YouTube of the shadows kind of going back to
We need a line.
Right.
Abbey
How are
Road
you?
here.
I'm all right.
Yeah?
Yeah, good to see
That's
you.
the
We're going to
bit-
go
that's-
all our
that's,
yesterdays.
All our
now.
yesterdays.
Apache, we've got the tune. There's no intro to it. Everything needs an intro.
So I went there and finished the song off, and I'll show you a couple of little videos of it because it was pretty cool just to be making it in the same place where the original one was recorded. So here we are. This is the iconic crossing. There it is. Classic. And then here's the entrance to the studio. Thanks. Here we are. Okay, so here's me walking across infamous. Alright, here we're working on the track. It's cool because we're actually using the original EMI. Sounding nice. We're using the actual original EMI console, which has a fantastic sound. Shadow Hills compressor there, which is killer. So we're A-being the original Shadow. So this is us A-being the original Shadow. We're still working on it. Still got a bit of work to do. Still got a lot of work to do, but it sounded good. Doing a little bit of sweetening here. So it's great fun to be there at Abbey Road. It's like just an amazing kind of legendary place. When you go in there and you're kind of walking the halls, you see there's just like all this amazing equipment everywhere. There's just like literally priceless, lining the halls and stuff. And it's just cool just to, like places like that. Places like that are almost like holy ground, Anyway, so the song Apache, we recorded the song. I learned a lot from working on this song, and it's out now, so it's on Spotify. So go and check it out. Hopefully you'll like it. But you should learn this song too. But whether or not you learn this song, the whole point is to immerse yourself in the music, where you learn about the song itself, like how it was written, who wrote it, and what they were trying to say with the song. And the cultural significance of the song. Like, for example, if you're learning an old blues song, just to kind of like look into the history of the song and what was going on during that time when it was written, and what instruments were they using, what were they trying to say, what do the words mean, and then looking at the techniques, like how, with like learning, for example, with Hank, how he got the sound from actually kind of bouncing his hand as he's playing, or the way he plays and gets such a sweet sound by using upstrokes. And then finally, just learning the theory, just like that song, Apache, it's so cool. It's kind of like in a Dorian sound. That's where the part of the mystery and the grandeur of the sound comes. And then it changes key in the second part. And then even the last part where it does the... That actually is like an F Lydian scale. And the F Lydian scale has a very mysterious sound, but it's more majory sounding. But just like the D Dorian, the home key is also C. So it's another mode of a C major scale. So learning stuff like that can really help you understand, really help you kind of get this kind of bigger picture of what's going on in the song. And then finally, just understanding that a song like that is all about the power of the notes, the power of the melody, and then that beautiful tone and just letting it ring out. And that's a big part of how dramatic that sound is. It's a great song, and Hank Marvin is a legend, and it was really fun playing this. And hopefully you'll enjoy it. And don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and let me know what your favorite Shadows song is in the comments. And we'll see you next time.